good, y'all? I just graduated high school, and it's a very surreal feeling, But, last week, Thursday, graduated high school. It was great. Got my diploma, you know what I'm saying? And, it's over. High school's done. But these past few days, I've just been reminiscing about, the stuff I thought about coming into high school. And it's like, man, I really got everything I wanted, if you feel me. I wanted happiness, I wanted growth, I wanted friendships, I wanted a lot of things, man. And honestly, God has truly blessed me with the opportunity to have everything I've ever asked for. But what I will say is that it certainly wasn't the way I expected it. Everyone wants happiness, everyone wants love, everyone wants growth, everyone wants success. But it's about if you really want it and the stuff that you're willing to go through to achieve that. You feel what I'm saying? And coming in freshman year, not knowing a thing about the school I was going to, I really had to trust God in a lot of situations. And God has truly put the right people at the right time. And I truly believe that, because there wouldn't be no other outcome if it wasn't for those people that were in my life. As a kid, I was very, I would say, very optimistic, very passionate about things. And I wanted to learn, I wanted to continue to grow. And honestly, I wasn't getting that where I was coming from. I grew up in a very violent neighborhood, a strong upbringing from my family. But man, it just wasn't it. If you know what I'm saying, let me know down below. But bro, it just wasn't getting me nowhere. It was just so much trauma, so much drama, so much stuff going on that wasn't getting me nowhere, and I didn't want to be a part of it. So I had to get out. And yo, check out that deer over there. Holy cow. What the hell? The deer's trying to listen to what I'm saying. Yo, what's good, bro? Nah. Is that a he or a she? I really don't know. But yeah, anyways, yeah, we out here in nature, getting that sun, getting that glow in. And yeah, bro, I've always wanted to find happiness, find a purpose. And I know y'all feel the same way. You really don't know what you get out of this life. And it's so beautiful the way stuff turns out. You'll go somewhere just out of the blue, and you'll meet somebody, and then you guys will stay in touch for years, and it'll start a whole journey with that person. And I know y'all feel what I'm talking about. So me going into freshman year, right, didn't know what to expect, but I'm with a whole bunch of different kinds of people, right? People all over the city. I'm talking Orchard Park, Niagara Falls, people from my city, people from the West Coast, East Coast, people from Canada, people from South Africa, people from Germany, and I'm just living, right? But I will say the school I went to really gave me that exposure I wanted. It gave me the opportunity to blossom. I wasn't in some area where I was just being constantly judged or tormented. I actually felt welcomed where I was. And I feel like that was the perfect click that it just clicked for me. You know what I'm saying? And, I wanted growth. I wanted challenge. But, going into sophomore year, going into junior year, I felt that challenge. And, there was points where that challenge was a little bit too much for me, And that's the thing with life. God is going to God is really going to push you to, like, you're really uncomfortable. You feel what I'm saying? And you're really going to start to question if God is really with you in that moment, you know. And you're just going to have faith. You're going to have faith. You're going to have to stick with it. And when you stick with it, things will get better. I promise. Because they did for me, you know. I really, really questioned a lot of things going through, you know, a lot of stress, a lot of pressure. I would say pressure was the biggest thing for me because, you know, I had a lot of anxiety growing up, especially through the neighborhood I was from. You know, I didn't know what was to come. You know, I didn't know when, you know, I didn't know what was going to happen. But that's the thing with God, you know, you don't know what's going to happen. But when you trust him, it's going to work out. It definitely will. I mean, I've been reading a whole lot of scripture. I've been reflecting a lot. And, you know, even looking into the Bible, the answers are in there for us. Like, Moses waited, 40 years to get to the promised land? Like, that's a whole lot of devotion. I don't think anyone's doing that nowadays. And, you know, if they can do that, why can't you follow your dream? You know what I'm saying? Like, why can't you go that extra step? Now, for me, happiness was a really complicated one, because when you're young, you know, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, you don't really know what happiness is really like yet, because you're still living, you know. Some people find happiness in the company of others. Some people find happiness in love, you know, intimacy, all that kind of stuff. But, you know, after my 4 years of high school, I realized that happiness it's in here, you know. It's within yourself. And that's something I've really been, you know, trying to figure out nowadays, because, you know, where I've grown up really has defined who I was at the time and who I'm becoming. You know, putting yourself around the right people. Every decision you make, like, you know what they say, every decision you make is another hole to another one. It's a different journey, you know. Every good decision, every bad decision you make, it all comes back. It all comes back in the end. It's like the butterfly effect with the dominoes. You know what I'm talking about? One domino hits the other domino, and then it just keeps on going. It keeps on going, and there's no going back. I will say my junior year, you know, that was a pivotal moment for me, because, you know, I got this right here. And yeah, if you guys don't know where this comes from, this is Kairos or Kairos, whatever you call it. And it was a retreat I went to, and it really showed me what really matters, you know. The moment, the present, you know, being alive, and just having the opportunity to live out here, to even be out here in the sun right now, is a blessing in itself. And it just reminds me that there's more for me to come. And, you know, these hard times, it's never over. It's never over. As long as I'm still breathing, as long as I'm still waking up every day, there's still more in the tank. There's still more to go. And I realized that, you know, my senior year, when, you know, stuff started working out, you know, I didn't know where I was going. And then, you know, just like that, a random click, and then, you know, I'm here. So, yeah, this retreat really showed me what happiness truly meant, you know, loving oneself. And I'll talk more about that in a different video, but let's move on to the next one. I wanted knowledge. You see, this one is my favorite, because knowledge doesn't necessarily come with age, but it comes with what you do with your time here. And when I mean your time here, I mean in this life on earth. You really don't know as much as you think you do. And it comes with experience, you know. I will say, like, as a graduate from high school, you know what I'm saying, alumni, don't be afraid to make mistakes. And I mean, make the right decisions, but don't be afraid to take a risk or try something new that you haven't done before, because you'd be surprised where that takes you. And that little decision, that little push, that leap of faith will take you far, and it'll completely change your whole perspective on things, because 99% of the things that we believe now are going to be entirely different 10 years from now. You feel what I'm saying? Yeah, knowledge, knowledge is power. It really is. And when you have knowledge in here, there's very few things that can crack you. And when I mean crack, I mean manipulation, Even when I was growing up, there was a lot of manipulation, and I didn't know where to go. I like to say I was going on a constant loop with no actual direction, just living, but nothing was happening, nothing was clicking, no progress was being made, that feeling when it in here, that you're not supposed to be where you're at right now, And I'm not saying you're behind, because nobody is, but what I'm trying to say is that you aren't supposed to be in this environment, Example, like you're out at a gathering that you shouldn't be at, and they're doing things that don't serve you, drugs, alcohol, stuff that doesn't really serve you, and you're just thinking, man, this is not what I'm called to do. It's not what I'm called to do. And there's always times to celebrate, but there's more that you're here for. There really is. Yeah. And just a lot of learning. We learn every single day. And I always wanted knowledge, because I've always looked up to people who were very knowledgeable. I've always had knowledgeable people in my life. Wise people telling me, don't be a follower. Stay your own lane. Do what you want to do. Don't let other people tell you who you can and can't be. Look, there's two deers over there even. Just living. That's life right there. It really is. Yeah. And that is also one thing about nature, like just being out here, embracing the silence. You really start to figure out, what your calling is, Nature in itself speaks to you. It's like a barrier that takes you out of like the life we're living now, because a lot of things in life are distractions. There's so many distractions right now in 2025, and I'll speak on that in a different video. But what I'm trying to say is nature is all we have when it comes to this life. An opportunity for us to be alone, embrace nature, embrace the calmness, embrace the peace, because there's a lot of noise in this year. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to see, a lot to do, but just having this peace, quiet, it's very peaceful, it's very calming, it gives you clarity, it clears your mind, clears your thoughts. And our thoughts can be really dangerous sometimes. I wish more people would understand that, your emotions cling onto your thoughts, then your thoughts become, not thoughts that you should be having, and it puts you in a constant loop of torment, of uncertainty and depression, And that's a lot of what I had in high school, but just being able to have that peace, that quiet, an opportunity to reflect, to read this bad boy right here, and just realize why I'm here, how blessed I am, truly is remarkable. One last thing, I'll say this right here. Expect nothing. And when I say that, expect nothing. Expect nothing. a lot of people who, you see day to day, they're not satisfied with their lives because they're expecting everything to go their way. And that's a completely false. Nothing is necessarily going to go your way. I saw that in so many scenarios. I wanted happiness, so I had to go through suffering in order to realize what that suffering was for. I prayed for strength, for growth. But strength and growth is not given. It's earned. In order to experience that, you have to live. It's not going to be given to you. So nothing is given. Everything is earned. We're very blessed to even be able to walk, to even be able to go to school, to go to high school, especially the high school I went to. I'm very blessed to have been there. And we're blessed to be alive, man. We're blessed to be alive. Ladies and gentlemen, we're blessed to be alive. Because there's someone out there that wishes they had that opportunity before it went out. I'll say that again. There is someone out there that wishes they had that opportunity before it went out. So, ladies and gentlemen, expect nothing. And when you expect nothing, you'll be a lot happier, because when things come into your life, you'll realize that it wasn't expected. You earned that. You earned that diploma. You earned that success. And I'll talk a lot more about that in a different video, but yeah. That's all I have to say. God bless.